different plants, different voices, and different ways of having conversations. It's time to get personal with plant medicine. Welcome to Getting Personal with Plant Medicine. I'm your host, Diana, and today I am joined yet again by friend of the pod, favorite of the pod, Tashiana Reeves. How are you doing today, Tosh?
Hi, Diana. Thank you for having me back. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm glad that we finally can hear each other really well.
We're at the end of Mercury retrograde, so I knew it would happen.
We should just try not to do anything technical during that time. But
Yeah. We persevere. It's okay.
So, as you know from previous experiences, we talk about the personal side of plant medicine. And while I know you work with a lot of plants in a lot of different professional capacities, the plant we're talking about today, you have a pretty strong personal connection to, I would say. So, tell us about how your journey with Valerian root began.
Ooh, okay. So my journey with Valerian root, I'm going to share because have worked with it for a very long time for the spiritual and energetic properties, but for its like medicinal benefits, I have like a very specific time frame that I started, and it's probably I'm going to narrow this down to like 9 years ago to be exact is when I really started using it in more of like a clinical regard. I had really bad, I was diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, for those that don't know what that is. However, my doctors came to determine that it was no other cause for it other than a nervous stomach is what their words, not mine. Is what they refer to it as, or like an overactive nervous system. So basically like incessant anxiety essentially was causing me to have a digestive disorder. And the neurologist that I was seeing at the time, actually, for another unrelated issue, suggested that I utilize valerian because of its benefits and it being a nervine herb. So that's how it came into my world in a medicinal way, but like for energetic and spiritual purposes, I've worked with it for a long time.
That's awesome. I have a similar story. I was misdiagnosed with IBS, and my GI at the time, I have IBD, which is Crohn's disease, falls under,
Yeah.
But anyway, he had told me to take valerian root because he didn't really like to give out pharmaceuticals, which I know is
Okay.
kind of against the grain for a GI. Unfortunately, he no longer practices, because I loved that about him. But anyway, that's how I became aware of it as well. And then later on, when my anxiety got worse, I wound up like chugging it, like taking it by the fistful, basically.
Which I'm sure had a really interesting effect for you, probably.
Yeah, yes. I mean, when I first tried, well, I was also coming off of another pharmaceutical anxiety medicine at the time. So I was like, valerian root. Because I'm like, that's where Valium comes from, right? And yeah, it didn't make my anxiety worse, but it didn't help me sleep. I had a really hard time sleeping when I took too much of it.
Okay.
So I know you know about that, and we can.
I can dive into that whenever you like.
Yeah, we might as well do it now since I opened the door to it.
Okay, might as well. Because you mentioning that it didn't make your anxiety any worse, but sometimes it would have these incidents where you were unable to sleep. Some people have a really interesting reaction to valerian. It's like 10% of the population. It is called a paradoxical like effect. So, or reaction, where instead of having their GABA receptors, the neurotransmitters in their brain, that perceive the valerian compounds, there's like 3 major compounds that it interacts with. The way it perceives it is different than the other 90% of the world, if you would so to say. So instead of like inducing calmness or like quieting the nervous system or modulating it, it does the opposite effect to them. But honestly, what you are saying, it really sounds like because of the dosage you were using, it really sounds more like the unwinding effect, because you like highlighted it didn't make your anxiety any worse. If you were having more of a paradoxical reaction to it, it would have been way worse. Trust me.
Mm.
Like it would have seemed a lot worse. So I genuinely think you were just having the unwinding effect, which is when your body is processing so much of it that it might stimulate you, keep you up a little. But if you were to dose yourself correctly now, you'd probably have the sedative effect. But definitely smaller dosages, not by the fistful.
But I have that kind of effect with like melatonin and chamomile, like the
Yeah.
things that are supposed to make me tired do not. But I'm also
Yes.
neurodivergent, and I know that has something to do with it as well.
That does, okay. So yeah, you definitely, because a lot of individuals that have paradoxical reactions are neurodivergent, or they just have really sensitive nervous systems. Sometimes a lot of people like myself that are just perceived as like, people with spiritual gifts or abilities, like until you kind of have those in check, it can create these sort of reactions. So there's a lot that goes hand in hand. That's why for me, like taking more of a holistic approach, I analyze everybody with a energetic lens and a clinical lens. So it makes my job a little easier. I can't say that that's the same for everyone in their practice. Sometimes it's just go low, start low and go slow, and see what happens kind of vibe. But luckily I don't have to deal with that quite often.
Well, speaking of that, how did your personal experience, did your experience with Valerian lead you to becoming an herbalist, or did that just kind of happen around the same time? Like, how did that begin?
So I would say I like becoming a clinical herbalist, because I always practice again in more of a folk aspect. That's what a lot of people like to call it, like a folk aspect. You're like a medicine woman. It's just generalized through generations of learning, family, ancestral knowledge. You come to work with the root. Is what we call it. But I would definitely say seeing the physical benefits that manifested in my body, like in a medicinal sense, from using it, was definitely one of my main driving factors to pursue a more clinical path when it
Mm-hmm.
came to herbalism. Because I do also have a degree in biology, so I have like a natural interest in how things are going to work within the human body, how they're going to help you create balance, homeostasis within your body. So it was like a natural transition for me. So about the same time, yeah, they were definitely aligned.
And you mentioned your spiritual gifts. So let's talk about how you can apply valerian root in a spiritual way.
Ooh, so for me, for example, in my practice, anyone can use it. A lot of people use it for spiritual disturbances, so it's really good at repelling negative energy, evil. A lot of people will keep it at their doorways, entrances, because it will repel negative energy, evil. It won't have any access to the space you're in. It's also really good for people that kind of feel like they have scattered energy, or people that dissociate a lot, because that's kind of a sign of like some sort of, I don't want to say an issue with the soul, but people that dissociate often are often having issues grounding their soul into their vessel. So it's good at pulling in scattered energy and grounding it into the body. It's also really good for dream work, any kind of dream work. If you're someone like you have prophetic gifts and you want to enhance them, or you just want to develop them, great herb to work with. If you are someone that struggles to like actually remember or recall dreams, it's really, really good for that. Lucid dreaming. For someone that's trying to have safe astral travel work, it's good at protecting you during that. Yes, a lot of energetic benefits. A lot. Like a lot for sure. A lot of people that might do Akashic records work, like along those lines, they may work with it often because they may encounter individuals that require soul retrieve. I'm not saying this is every single one, but I've noticed a correlation, like just over the years, of people that need some sort of soul retrieval work and seek out those that are Akashic records practitioners. So that would be something they would use, because it's really good at helping those that have dissociated from their vessel. Like if your nervous system gets so overstimulated, there is like an energetic repercussion for that, which is
Mm-hmm.
like some people's, your soul is like, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to take a break because there's too much going on in this vessel. So that's when people may appear spaced out or dissociated, things like that. And this is a really good herb to like help combat that. It like just pulls you into your vessel and protects you.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because
Yeah.
I do remember when I was taking it regularly, I could remember my dreams and they were very vivid. And I very
Mm-hmm.
rarely, actually almost never remember my dreams. So I thought that was interesting. At least not past like the first 2 minutes of waking up, you know?
It's also really good because you mentioning being neurodivergent, a lot of individuals that are neurodivergent have like psychic overstimulation because a lot of neurodivergents are naturally have spiritual gifts. They may not recognize that, but many of them do. And you can often have a lot of psychic overstimulation and they don't realize it. So when you utilize Valerian, that's why you can recall your dreams because it brings everything to like in balance. So it's like harmony. So your brain is like, okay, I can now process these things, these images, these gifts I have. So that has a lot to do with why. It slows your neural activity too. So it helps you literally process and register the dreams you're having.
That's interesting. I think I'll have
Yeah.
to get back into it. Well, I'm actually trying to grow it, which brings me to my next question because I know in our first attempt at this, we talked about the scent, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Yeah.
what are some common misconceptions about valerian root?
Man, I think we touched on it. I feel like the primary misconception people have is that the more you take, the more sedative of an effect you'll have. And that is not the case often. So it's much like when you give the kiddies too many melatonin gummies and now they're bouncing off the walls. It's very, again, a paradoxical reaction to you taking it in that fashion. So that is probably the number one misconception. Also, I'm going to go with a vanity metric here, but the fact that the smell it carries is, kind of pungent. A lot of people compare it to like blue cheese. So because of that, a lot of people think that the taste is going to just be like horrendous, and it's not. Like it has no real, it does not taste like what it smells like to me, which is rare for a food or anything you ingest for that matter. So that's another misconception, but those are the biggest two for sure.
Well, interestingly, I am trying to grow it. I'm going to plant some seeds this
I love
spring,
this.
and I was looking at the package, and it says that they have the plant actually releases like a vanilla scent.
Yes.
That's so interesting that it goes from that to, I guess, in the drying process.
Yes, it's like a pungent scent that it's again this is something that would be a great form of like chemistry for those that have an interest in it to explain why that actually occurs. But I think that is again another misconception people have. They don't realize like the life process of a lot of these herbs or roots. Like they can go through different stages or appear differently, but the biggest misconception is that I will meet people and they're like, yeah, I'm taking like 3 tablespoons and I'm just not sleeping. And I'm like, you probably are transporting yourself to the moon at night. And that's probably why you're not getting any sleep because that's probably why. But so that is the biggest misconception because you are better doing a low, like a teaspoon and a half. Go
Mhm.
from there and gauge upwards because it can be way too overstimulating for the nervous system. Like as it's trying to purge itself, it just overstimulates. It does the exact opposite.
Well, that is really good advice for someone who is beginning using it for the first time. Start low, go slow. What is your preferred consumption method of valerian root?
So me personally, I'm a tea drinker. So I love it in tea form, but I actually do really enjoy it as a tincture too. Like it's really effective when you for those that really, really need it for like medicinal benefits, by all means, I'm gonna give tincture a vote for this one here. But I personally enjoy consuming it in tea form. So it's just a personal preference though.
So, what is the difference to you between doing it medicinally and drinking the tea? Like, what benefits would the tea still bring?
So tea is still going to have a medicinal effect. The tincture consumption is for the sheer fact that you're going to have more of an immediate effect or relief on the body, essentially. Whereas, like, if I'm going to drink it in tincture form, I can do it 15 or so minutes before bed, and it's going to probably do what it needs to do. A tea, I'm going to typically try and gauge that 30 to 60 minutes beforehand, so it has a longer span for it actually having effect on the body. But personally, I feel like when I utilize it in tea form, it's more of a spiritual or energetic like connection for me to utilize it, because I also use it for like bathing and things like that and some spiritual baths I make. So I just prefer it in tea form.
Oh, let's talk about that really quickly. How do you do that in bath?
No, of course. So for Valerian, now again, if you're going to use Valerian, I personally, like whenever I'm using it, I use Valerian for the sake of calming psychic overstimulation that I have. And when I really have to do like enhanced sort of dream work, like it might be for a personal client, for example, could just be for myself, whatever's taking place. I will utilize, like a little sachet, or I will brew it like I would brew a normal tea. Like I call it a tea bath, like literally brew it like I would make a normal tea. And I usually like to have valerian. I do a little mullein because mullein is really, really good at combating negative energy and evil, but specifically when you're like in a dream state. So it's really good at protecting you like across space and time. How about that? If that makes it more of a logical sense. And then I like to pair with lavender. So those three, I know it seems like an uncommon pair, but lavender also again has an extreme protective benefits, but it's also like uplifting. So it's like the uplifter in the three. So that's a really simple bath I like to use. Like if I need to do dream work, but I need to make sure I have a lot of protection, or I'm trying to do some sort of manifestation work, but doing so like through a dream state, I would use those three. A little salt of any kind. Take your bath. On your way. That's it.
Like Epsom salt. So, would that help your body in any way, or is that more of a spiritual application in the bath?
No, of course. So there are of course going to be natural like benefits that you physically your body would have. If I tell individuals like if you want something like you in a sense like a skin enhancement. You can even add calendula to this blend here.
Ooh.
But the three of those herbs that I just mentioned alone, like lavender, for example, has great aromatherapy benefits. So you are getting these sort of benefits as well when you're using it. Valerian actually has some like antimicrobial benefits, like same with mullein. So these are things that also, like I say with anything, everything has a physical benefit and a spiritual or energetic benefit. So naturally, it's like a trinity of benefits actually, because there's three of them there. But adding the Epsom salt too helps to, I don't want to say purge your vessel, but it helps to release and like detox, so you can actually create pathways like in your body to receive these herbs and their benefits. So that's why I like to pair everything with a little salt. Epsom salt specifically if possible, but regular salt will do if we're in a pinch.
So, do you approach it differently with your tea blends and your bath blends as far as complementary herbs? Like, what are some really good herbs that you use in a tea blend with valerian root, other than what you just mentioned, I guess?
Okay, so valerian root. So I find that outside of my astral tea blend, I really only use valerian when I'm working with like customers that request custom blends. Like they come to me with some sort of ailment, and we're trying to assess what's going to be a good blend to help this. Um, for example, in my astral blend, blue lotus, although going to have a sedative effect, like in small amounts, it's a great pairing with valerian. Goodness, lemon balm goes so good with valerian.
Wow.
Incredible. Lemon balm is great because it's like a nervine ally. Like they're in the same family, so they're going to aid one another and amplify those. Like if you're someone with anxiety, that would be a definite duo to implement in your any sort of daily practice. Um, Goodness, I'm thinking personally. Valerian goes great with passion flower. It's that is going to be more of a pairing, though. I would suggest for someone that is having like a lot of mental distress, like someone that might have even manic disorders or like hysteria, it would, those two together would be incredible for someone suffering from those sort of symptoms. Um, it goes great with yarrow. It has a nice, I like it with jasmine too. It can be very offsetting. So yarrow, jasmine, valerian. Um, those are great pairings too. I don't love it with hibiscus. It can pair well with hibiscus. I know a lot of people that just because of it being utilized for Dreamwork pair the two. I'm not, taste wise, I'm not a huge fan, but medicinally, I am a huge fan of that pairing also. I would not suggest pairing it for consumption with like ginseng or like guarana. Something stimulating like that would be like way too much.
Okay.
Way too, it would be just way, it has, they have opposite effects on the nervous system. So it can be a catastrophe for some people in the body. Um, but I would give the same cautionary for if you're pairing it with blue lotus, although great. Some people will pair it even with kava sometimes, although great. You want to have just smaller doses of like blue lotus and of kava because they already carry sedative like effects for some
Hmm.
people. So yeah, but they're great pairings too.
Which ones would you say you could use during the daytime if you're not someone who's like very sensitive to sedative effects?
Lemon balm and valerian. Lemon balm, valerian, and lavender. Because even though lavender is calming, it is uplifting. So that would be one that I would recommend. Those pairings.
I'm going to try that because, as you know, I love lemon balm, and that sounds like a great daytime.
Lemon balm queen. I actually just saw someone grew some, like I follow, and they grew some and harvested it, and it was so funny because anytime I see lemon balm, I think of you. Like it's like
Oh,
your herb in my head. So yeah,
well, I am a Leo, as you are, right? Wouldn't lemon balm be like a Leo herb? I feel like it would be.
it would. I feel like it's lemon balm. Yes, we definitely have chamomile. Believe it or not, rose because Leos rule the heart space. So and rose is a heart related. So that is definitely another one that, even though people don't seem to correlate it with us, would be a sufficient. Lemongrass too. Lemongrass is another one that energetically for me corresponds with Leo. And helichrysum. I don't know if you work with helichrysum, but I'll have to. It's also called like wild curry sometimes. Some people call it like life everlasting flower. So that's another one that's definitely totally. When you see it, you're like, oh yeah, this looks like us for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so is there anyone that you would recommend staying away from valerian root? Like, is there any situation where you wouldn't really advise to use it?
Pregnant. If you're pregnant, obviously just don't. Just don't. If you speak to your physician, your healthcare provider, your doula, someone, but just don't just immediately. If you're also someone that is already on any sort of pharmaceuticals that are sedatives, like sedatives of any kind, I would avoid this until you again speak to whoever is prescribing you said pharmaceuticals. Also, not that I would recommend staying away from it, but often those that have ADHD or ADD, like some that are neurodivergent, I would definitely suggest just using it in like sparse form, like very, like even lower dosages than normal, just to make sure there's not a paradoxical reaction that takes place. But I wouldn't say completely omit it. Like you would definitely want to give it a try. You won't know until you actually try. But pregnant, if you're already on any form of sedatives, definitely stay away from it. If you're someone that uses St. John's wort, because typically that's kind of a standalone sort of herb, I wouldn't recommend, or motherwort, I wouldn't recommend. Like, obviously, don't combine those with that. What else? Those would be my. Also, if you're someone that you're on like anticonvulsants or something like that, because Valerian can be used to treat epilepsy. It has in the past. So it's used for like convulsions, muscle spasms, things of that nature. So if you're already on any medications of that sort, you would want to obviously consult your physician before you enhance
Right.
those effects as well. So yeah.
I just had the mental image. Every time I talk about Valerian root, I think about the Sopranos episode where Christopher. I don't know if you ever saw it, but he's like him and the friend in the scene or whatever. They're basically trying to avoid going back to heroin, but then they decide to kind of try out some loopholes, and they decide to make valerian root tea, but they use like 10 bags in one cup because they heard that it like
I
has the
can't.
same type of effect. Something like that.
Yes.
Like obviously it's not a heroin effect, right? But it was like something, and I'm like, where did they hear
Right.
that? Because I've never heard that before.
I mean, it can. For some, it can. It definitely can.
Oh,
Like
really?
there's like three major, yeah, like the three major compounds that kind of affect the GABA receptors in the brain. Those are the ones that really simulate like that, like hardcore sedative effect that people are chasing with some pharmaceutical drugs,
Mm-hmm.
or like heroin, things of that nature. So yeah, it can definitely have that effect for sure.
Wow. I've been talking trash about that episode all this time because I was like, that can't be real. But they put like the
That
whole
is so
box
fun.
of
I've
tea
never
bags in
seen
like
that
one cup.
episode. I gotta look at that.
Yeah, it's in the later seasons. So speaking of tea, before we go, tell us about how people can get a tea blend from you as far as like with valerian root, without it, that sort of thing, because I know you offer
Yeah,
customizable blends.
of course. So anybody can visit me at my website, tashianathesungoddess.com. If you need a custom tea blend, you don't see one on the site that fits your needs, you can email me at support@tashianathesungoddess.com. And I'm on pretty much all platforms, Tashiana the Sun Goddess. So Instagram, Substack, Threads. I like to hang out on Threads a lot. YouTube also. Any of those platforms you can message me on as well, and I'll get you looped in to our email so that way I can help you with a custom blend. So you can find me everywhere.
And also, we'll put that in the show notes just in case anyone checks that. And so I should also quickly mention that the brand behind this podcast, Christopher's Organic Botanicals, offers the tincture. So if you are looking for something more medicinal, then definitely head on over there. And right after this, you're going to hear the Christopher Corners segment where he'll talk about that a little bit more. So thank you again for coming back. I always love recording with
Thank
you.
you for having me.
I appreciate your
Thank
knowledge.
you, Di. I appreciate it. Thank you to Christopher's Corner.
Hello, this is Christopher's Corner. This week, we're shifting the spotlight from kratom for a moment and talking about another traditional botanical we carry, valerian root. Valerian has been used for centuries in herbal traditions, particularly as an evening botanical for people who are looking to wind down and support restful nights. At Christopher's Organic Botanicals, we currently offer 2 valerian options so customers can choose the format that fits their routine best. First is evening valerian. Evening valerian capsules are simple and consistent. Many people prefer them because they're easy to take and convenient to incorporate into a nightly routine. The second option is evening valerian liquid extract. This is a tincture format, which some customers prefer because liquid extracts can be adjusted drop by drop and absorbed a little quicker. Both products are built around the same philosophy we follow with everything we offer: traditional botanicals, straightforward formulations, and transparency about what you're getting. Over time, we've heard from many customers who appreciate having an evening botanical option available besides normal kratom products. Some people tell us they use valerian as part of their nightly routine to help settle down after a long day. Others simply like having a plant-based option in their herbal cabinet as an extra tool. Now let's talk about what's happening on the legislative side. There are still several states actively discussing kratom-related legislation, ranging from regulatory proposals to outright bans. These things often move quietly through communities, which means the public may not even know something is happening until it's already advanced. We've been sending emails from our customer list and segmenting them according to towns and states where these bans are being proposed. That's why we're staying connected. It really matters. Let's get part of the conversation. Best way to stay informed and participate is to join our school community, where we share updates, break down legislation, and coordinate responses when needed. And also make sure you attend our weekly tea talks every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on our Zoom. We discuss these developments live and answer questions about Kratom. Your voice truly matters in these conversations. On the customer side, don't forget about our point system. Every purchase earns rewards that can be used on future orders. We keep it simple. You receive 10% back in points on all purchases, and those points convert into real savings when you redeem them. It's our way of rewarding customers who continue to support natural botanicals and support Christopher's Organic Botanicals. And if you're a brand new customer or you haven't used the code yet, remember you can use code first time for 15% off your first order. I'll close with this. Whether we're talking about Kratom, Valerian, or any other botanical, education and transparency are what moves this space forward. When people understand these plants and how they're traditionally used, the conversation becomes much more productive. That's Christopher's Corner. Stay informed, stay grounded, and keep supporting natural botanicals and the communities that rely on them.
Getting Personal with Plant Medicine is brought to you by Christopher's Organic Botanicals and is produced by Your Highness Media.